Crafters, thanks for joining me here in the attic. So pull up a chair, grab your favorite beverage, and we'll get to crafting and memory keeping. Welcome to day 7 of Fairy Wings and Forgotten Things. I can't believe it's been a whole week of magical fairy scavenger hunting. If you are new here, this is a collaboration that I'm putting on with 10 collaborators, and it is hosted in my Facebook group. The link will be down in the description box. There is also a complete video on how to join in on this quest and enter the giveaways at the end of the month. I will have that video linked at the end of this video. And there is also a complete playlist of days 1 through 7 so far. I am documenting the adventure quest of Professor Fernscribe. So today is not my official day. Be sure to go over and check out It's a Crafty Life to grab those fairy tokens that'll go on your game board. If you don't know where to grab the fairy tokens in the game board, that is also down in the description box. But today, Professor Fernscribe is going to go into the world of the night forest keepers. And Professor Fernscribe's prompt for the day is the fairy lantern. Something that shines. Again, these are not your official prompts unless I tell you that they are. So please be sure to follow that link tree and the calendar for the official prompts of the day. This is my telling of the story of the adventures of Professor Fernscribe. Today what I want to be doing is creating a background for the fireflies in the night sky, and I'm going to be using some Distress Oxide inks to create this background. I'm going to be using Chipped Sapphire, Hickory Smoke, Lost Shadow, and Fossilized Amber. I'm going to start out with some Chipped Sapphire, and for my night sky background I want to also create a full moon scene here, because these are the night forest keepers and I feel like they'd be guided by the moonlight. So I'm using these Moon Mask by Tim Holtz. Let me see if I can take this out of the pack. It comes with 3 different sizes. It's kind of shiny. I want to see if I can take it out of the pack and show you the number. There's the number. It's THMSK01 Moon Mask, and they came from Stampers Anonymous. I am going to be using the middle size for this. I want my moon kind of right here, and to keep that in place I'm going to get a little bit of washi tape and put on the back. I'll hold it in place also, but I want something to kind of help me keep it a little more stable. So I've got some washi tape I keep for this kind of thing, because it's something it's a pattern I don't use a whole lot. So I'm just going to make a couple of loops of tape and get this kind of placed where I think I want my moon. And it comes with 2 different layers. You start out with your base layer of your moon, and then you've got the shadow part that you will then go back and do as the second step. I'm going to start out using my Distress Oxide, Chipped Sapphire, and just do some ink blending on the page to kind of create my night sky all around this whole page. So I'm just going to add some music here and get this inked up to create my night sky. Now I've got my base color all down, I'm going to take up this mask, and what I want to do is I'm going to take my fossilized amber and I'm going to go in here and do some blending to start creating my moon. I'm going to try to stay in the circle, but if it goes out a little bit, it'll just kind of look like a moon glow. I like to do ink blending for things like this because it's kind of easy to get some subtle shading just by putting pressure. The more pressure you put on the ink blending brush, the more ink you'll lay down. Now that I've got my moon, I'm going to bring back the mask, and I'm going to take a piece of that tape back so that I can kind of tape this down again to hold it in place. See how I want that shadow. I think I'm gonna do it like that. So you just line that second mask back up with your circle. And I'm gonna do the shadow with the hickory smoke. And then when you've got that done, you just pick your mask up, and now you've got your moon. I'm gonna go over the edges of this moon just a little bit with the lost shadow. Don't want it quite so bright, but I don't want to use that hickory smoke. That would have been too dark. I just want to tone that down just a little bit. And now what I want to do to make my fireflies in the night sky is I've got some Distress Oxide mica stain in the flickering candle. I'm going to shake this up, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to cover up my pictures so that they don't end up being covered with the splatter, because I'm going to do some splattering with this mica stain. I've got everything covered up where I don't want any of the splatters to be. I've shaken my bottle up, and when you do that, you want to look to make sure your mica stain is kind of off the bottom of your bottle. Otherwise, you won't have that shimmery look because all the mica settles down to the bottom. And when you're doing splatters, I just take this off and use the nozzle itself and just tap, and it creates a splatter. You can get it a little closer to the pages if you want bigger splatters. Further away will give you smaller ones. And since I want this kind of to be like the fireflies are all over the night sky, I'm just going to kind of splatter this all around the page. The bigger splatters to me resemble a lot of fireflies clustered together, and then the smaller ones, they're a little further away. If you were using paint to do this, you could do this with a paintbrush. Back in elementary school, I think we learned how to do it with a toothbrush and kind of just flick the bristles to make splatters. So I'm going to set this aside, let it dry, and come back and finish out my embellishments. The Fae seemed to be playing some tricks on me today, so I lost some of my footage of creating the rest of this page. I wanted to tell you a little bit about what I did here. I have an owl up in the left corner that came from a kit from Emily Designs. I added my Night Forest Keeper label with some mesh underneath it, and I created a tuck spot tag in the bottom right hand corner using one of the freebies from Nate at Peach Domino Paper Crafts, and I'm using that to hold my daily note card. And I added my firefly lantern in the top right hand corner. This was fussy cut from one of my freebies this week that can be found in my Facebook group. I've printed a second lantern, and I've got some little lights that I've rigged up, the little fairy lights behind here, and you can turn it on right there at the side, if you can see that. And I'm going to put this down with some Velcro dots. That way, if I ever have to take this off to replace the batteries, it'll just pull up right with the Velcro dots. So I'm going to place these dots right here. These are just like button fairy lights. They run off those little button batteries. And I just poked holes through the lantern to stick the little bulbs through. And then I used some foam to pop the whole thing up so that it would have space for the little battery pack. Now what I want to do is line this up to where it's sitting right over the lantern here, so it looks like it's kind of creating a shadow effect. And then I'm going to put a little bit more foam right under here to hold this up. Need to grab my foam dots. I've got some pretty thick foam dots, but the dots are a little too big, so I'm just going to cut the excess here, and it works the exact same way as the dots do, and lay it right underneath there as like a little strip. And I'm not going to Velcro that piece down. I just want it to where it stops the movement from being crushed in the book. So I've got that. So let's turn our little lights on so you can see how those work. Okay, and you just turn them right on, and that's our firefly lantern. I'm going to ink up my firefly lantern card, and I'm going to ink that direct ink pad to paper technique so that I get plenty of ink on there, because I want this to kind of look like it glows along with the fireflies. And I'm using the fossilized amber here. And I'm going to grab the stamps. We'll go ahead and stamp our day 7. Can't believe this week is over. We are finished week 1. 3 more weeks to go. Hope everybody's having fun. There we go. And be on the lookout. I will have the story cards up in the Facebook group later on today, and I will have a bonus video that I'd love it if you'd check out that tells you a little bit more about these story cards. It'll be a really short video, promise it'll be less than 5 minutes, but it's really important if you would watch that video so that you can see how and why I created this story for Professor Fernscribe. So let's look at what Professor Fernscribe has to tell us today. Day 7, World of the Night Forest Keepers, the Firefly Lantern. Environmental notes: a forest exists in eternal twilight. Air cool and damp, ground thick with moss. Population of fireflies unusually dense. Light patterns coordinated in rhythmic pulses. Cultural observations: the night forest keepers are tall, willowy figures cloaked in bark and shadow. They act as guardians of nocturnal life, tending to fireflies, owls, and other night creatures. They value silence, communicating through gestures and light. Artifact notes. The firefly lantern is a glass vessel of organic growth, likely grown, not blown, containing living fireflies whose light never wanes. Artifact hums faintly, attuned to lunar cycles, a portable vigil of the forest night. Narrative encounter. Guided only by the flicker of countless fireflies, I entered a grove where the keepers stood motionless as trees. One extended an arm, and in its hand was a lantern, grown of translucent bark, within which fireflies pulsed like living stars. When I accepted it, the swarm above flickered in unison, a farewell or perhaps a blessing. In that moment, the forest seemed less a wilderness and more a cathedral of night. And that ends Day 7 and Week 1 of Fairy Wings and Forgotten Things. I hope you'll come back and join me again here tomorrow as we see where Professor Fernscribe heads next on her adventure. So until next time, y'all take care.